One of the most important episodes of a show's first season is the episode directly after its premiere. The premiere is usually a bigger production and sets up the tone and general plot and the characters and gets the series started, while the episode, generally episode 2 or 3, depending if that premiere is split up into 2 or not, is the one that shows how individual episodes are going to be handled, and generally there's a little bit of time in between when the premiere, the pilot episode, was filmed and the rest of the season is put together, so little things like changing the shades of purple on like trance, or like different colors and different lighting and things are usually fixed a little bit more between the premiere and that first episode. So it's really important for that episode to be just as good as the premiere, if not better, because that's the thing that's going to keep audiences that have been drawn in from the premiere going through the first season. Sadly, the third episode of Andromeda, after the 2-part premiere, is one of the worst in the entire season. In fact, it's probably one of the lower episodes in the entire series. And that brings me to the biggest problem with Season 1. Now, overall, Season 1 of Andromeda is what I would say the second best season in the entire series, but it's very uneven. You'll have 1 or 2 episodes in a row that are some of the best in the entire series, and then the next one will be a total flop. And they are trying to figure things out and establish this universe with Season 1, but it just seems that the problem is more with inconsistent quality of writing. The individual plots of these episodes aren't all up to the same standard. It's very hit or miss, and that is an issue that can plague a lot of shows in that first season, but again, here it's a much more dramatic example. You have the third episode, which is just a disaster. It just feels like, basic cable sci-fi crap of the week. And then a few episodes later, you have an episode like Double Helix, which really is a good example of showing off the Nietzscheans and really establishing those characters and establishing that race within this universe. And speaking of that episode, Double Helix, it's one of my personal favorite episodes because it's a great example of showing the individual characters, and that is the strength of Season 1. In those really good episodes, they're good, not just because they're great sci-fi, but because they really establish that this is a show with a great ensemble cast, and these tend to be episodes that have a focus on one particular character or another, and it really brings a lot of depth to these characters overall and draws you in more because you care about these characters and you're interested about this universe that it's creating. In Double Helix, they encounter the Orca Pride, a very small pride of Nietzscheans that are established themselves in an asteroid field with their home and this powerful cannon they have to defend themselves. And it really shows a lot of Tyr's character and explains what to that point was not 100% clear exactly what Nietzscheans are, how they are genetically modified and perfected humans, where they'll over the centuries have weeded out things like possible blindness or any kind of little ailments, to the point where it is even possible over the centuries to have an exact duplicate, a genetic reincarnation of an individual, because the number of possible genes, the pool of DNA, has been shrunk so much with these Nietzscheans, and they have so many children. And it really establishes the philosophy of the Nietzscheans. It is a wonderful explanation of Tyr's character. It's just such a good episode that really shows what this show has as far as potential.
I'll take it from here.
He's a high-priced mercenary.
Here.
Tyr.
Tyr Anasazi.
Give up! You're nothing! You're no one!
You're wrong.
I am Tyr! Anasazi of Kodiak Pride! Out of Victoria by Barbarossa! And I will never surrender!
Also, over the course of the season, it really establishes the dynamic and the struggle and the tension between Tyr and Dylan Hunt, and the kind of mental chess game they play throughout the series. It really sets that premise up and really shows just the interesting complexity of their relationship.
He went to the Drago cats off homeworld?
Hey, my exact reaction.
Why would Tyr walk into the stronghold of his mortal enemies?
I'll see your question. I'll raise you one. What did he do when he got there? Look at that. A couple of hours after he landed, the Dragos mobilized their entire fleet.
That's Tyr. He always loved the party.
It shows Harper to be more than just this comedic relief character who initially seems like he's going to be, and he is sort of a tortured genius and a very interesting character that has very unique relationships with each person in the cast. It shows a little bit more of Rev Bem and a lot of his just talking in sort of the garden with Dylan at the end of a lot of episodes and giving lots of just great philosophical content to look at. Even delves a little bit deeper into Andromeda, the ship's AI itself. It shows a lot of Transgemini as far as establishing the mystery about her, wondering what really is trans. What can she possibly do? What does she have an ulterior motive? It really brings up this point of, is she really just this cute, adorable, fun, well-meaning creature, or could she possibly be even this, menacing demon underneath? You have no idea. It really brings out this just interesting discussion about that character that you don't really expect from the premiere, where she just kind of seems like this cutesy purple girl.
Harper, be careful. He has 2 loaded guns. You only have a bad temper.
Aren't you dead?
I got better.
Another great episode is The Ties That Blind Him, with Becca Valentine. Really focuses on her character, and you get to know a lot about her past and a lot of the difficulties involving her brother and particularly her father when she meets up with one of her father's old business partners, played by John Delancey, known as more commonly as Q from the Star Trek franchise. A wonderful episode, shows off some of the better writing and acting in the series, and adds a conflict, adds a flaw to Becca's character that, for at least the rest of the first season, is something that kind of comes up every once in a while and adds just a more dynamic, more interesting, layered character to Becca Valentine. Probably one of the best elements of Season 1, though, is the establishment of Dylan Hunt's character and showing how he is this very idealistic, almost perfect hero-type character who is finding that that's actually his greatest character flaw. He's taken out of time, out of place, and the way he's used to acting, the way he's used to commanding, the way he's used to understanding his reality doesn't necessarily work in this new reality, and he's taking chances that he can't always afford to take, and he begins to realize that he has to rely on these people that, on some level, even though he would never admit it, he does see as beneath him, almost savages. He begins to realize that he's on level with them and he has things he can offer them, but they have just as much as they can offer him, and they really do need each other. They form this bond and this relationship over this season. They start to feel more like a crew. They start to feel more like a family, and you get more of an idea of the almost impossible nature of this task that Dylan Hunt has set out for himself, and you start to see more of how society is now structured as it fragmented after the fall of the Commonwealth, and there are actually parts that are very organized, and it brings to question this idea that is what Dylan wants, is the Commonwealth actually the best thing? Is having everything under one unified rule actually what's best for the galaxy? Because it does help everyone, it does sort of even things out, but at the same time, it might actually make things worse for some parts of the galaxy. And it's a very complex world now that Dylan has brought himself into compared to what he's used to. And that's the great thing, is no one is 100% clear, good or bad. Not every single goal, no matter how well intentioned, always brings up a question of, because that character thinks it's the best thing to do, is it really the best thing to do? And these questions are explored within Season 1, and it really starts to set up a picture of, you have the individual episode of the week, but there's going to be a much bigger, broader, lasting story arc bubbling beneath the surface that is being built up, and you just kind of get ready to see that come to the surface at the beginning of Season 2. You're ready by the end of Season 1 to think that, wow, this could really pull some elements of storytelling from something like Deep Space Nine or Babylon 5 and that type of thing, and mix it with more of the story structure of something like The Next Generation, with many of its, story of the week type things and creature of the week type elements, and it could be really, really good. The best thing about Season 1 for me is not necessarily just the good episodes versus the bad episodes, it's the overall package, because Season 1 presents a lot of hope and a lot of potential, and really just builds up this series to possibly be, a grand sci-fi epic. No matter what you think of the first season, it builds up the possibility in the future of being a wonderful show. And sadly, as we'll see in Season 2, that kind of falls apart, but one of the best examples of quality in the series is in Season 1, in the episode Angel, Dark, Demon, Bright.
Yes and no.
Don't fight the screen!
It started it!
Guys?
Oops.
Now, this is a wonderful episode because it shows all these elements that I talked about. Trance tries to pilot the Andromeda. They're trying to give her lessons because the crew is so limited. They need everyone to have as many skills as possible. Everyone needs to be a jack of all trades for them to survive. And Trance somehow accidentally screws up in Slipstream and sends them 300 years into the past towards the end of the Commonwealth era, right before the last big battle before the High Guard fell. And it shows, did Trance actually do that by accident, or did she somehow purposefully do that? Because the Andromeda does have a lasting effect in that battle. They actually become a part of history, a huge part of history in the shaping of the universe, and it really brings to question the nature of Transgemini.
Did I do all right?
Well, I'm just taking a stab at it, but that doesn't look like 36 Ophiuchi.
I can't get it fixed in our location because of the nebula. But we're definitely not where we should be.
And you have a great moral dilemma that shows a sort of a three-way moral conflict between Dylan and Rev and Tyr.
I think I'm supposed to be here.
I find it hard to believe something like this would happen without purpose.
And I find it hard to believe that we're supposed to help the Nietzschean.
And it shows elements of what is Becca's true belief, and Harper and the two of them, and what are their true feelings, and how it shows how they're not quite aligned in their goals with Dylan. They want a similar thing, but they want to get there in different ways, and they have a lot of disagreements. And this one episode shows everything that was good about Season 1 in one package, and that's why I feel like it's such a great episode. And it takes the time travel element, the cliched, aspects of a lot of old sci-fi, and does it in a way that it feels pretty fresh and feels interesting, and it's a very tense and dynamic and wonderful episode. So Season 1 has 4 or 5 really good episodes and a bunch of kind of mediocre or bad ones, but overall it really is a great start to the series, and most importantly sets up a lot of potential. And then you get to the final episode, which is very, very important for where you think the series is going to go. Not for where it ended up going, but for where you think it's going to go. The biggest challenge for Dylan Hunt is trying to convince people that this reestablishment of the system's commonwealth, of this unified order, is the best thing for everyone. And he needs an excuse, he needs a drive, he needs some sort of unifying force to bring everyone together. And he finally gets that in the last episode when the AI on the Andromeda goes haywire and starts activating an old secret mission that the Andromeda was supposed to go on centuries ago before it was frozen in time, deep into Magog space. And there they uncover the Magog super weapon. There is this Magog world ship that is actually a bunch of planets tied together in this giant web, being powered by an actual sun at its core, and it is filled with billions of Magog, and it is finally nearing completion and ready to start wreaking havoc on the galaxy. And in their discovery of this, now they finally have this thing that will affect everyone, this thing that is unstoppable unless everyone unifies, unless all these different military and government groups and all these, even just like the smugglers and just all these different underground networks, everyone has to come together or they will all fall. It's unify or die. So it really finally gives this thing that is needed for the plot to really make the idea of Systems Commonwealth become something that is more than just the personal belief of a character that realistically is not possible, into something that has to be done. The finale is brutal and action-packed and frightening, and really puts them in a situation that seems impossible. It's one of those really great season enders where you think, is there actually going to be a plausible way for them to get out of the situation, or is it going to be just this hackneyed, writer's excuse in the beginning of season 2, where they're just going to be, this magical thing is going to happen and they're going to get out, and you're going to be like, oh, okay. You don't know, and it's wonderful in many ways. I would compare it to the best of both worlds at the end of season 3, beginning of season 4 of Star Trek Next Generation. It's not as good as those 2 episodes, but at the same time it's a very similar feeling and structure to the end of season 1, beginning of season 2 of Andromeda. So it ends on a really great and powerful note and finally gives the story that last element it needs to establish the potential for just a wonderful sci-fi epic. So season 1 has its flaws, but we're off to a great start with the show, and it seems Robert Hewitt Wolf is getting a lot of his initial vision out in season 1. But sadly, right after season 1 is when things start to fall apart. And in the next video, we'll take a look at season 2.